For non-religious couples, booking an all-in venue could be the option of choice. This way you could have your entire day under one roof. I went to visit Nigel Wilkinson, wedding coordinator at Lim Castle, to find out more. Nigel, thank you for welcoming me to this superb venue on what's a beautiful day. Let me ask you, what sorts of things do a bride and groom need to consider when booking an all-in-one venue?
The list is quite a long list actually, Mark.
Really?
Obviously it has to start with the basics. Is the venue what they want? Is it big enough? Is it within their budget? And does the venue do what they want to do? I.e., are there any restrictions on children, high heels? Can we come outside into the grounds? Do we have enough parking? Do they allow outside caterers, etc., etc.? It's also very important for the bride and groom to be aware whether or not they're sharing the venue with anyone else. I.e., if the venue is open to the public, they will be sharing the venue with whoever decides to come on that day. A hotel, obviously there may be overnight guests, there may be guests coming to restaurants, coming to bars, coffee shops, etc. If it's a venue that is open to the public historically, generally, then whoever is going to fancies going looking around a castle on that day is going to be there. Yeah. And does the venue do more than one event on one day? This Lim Castle doesn't,
right.
And there's nothing worse, especially for the bride and the groom, than finding out on the day that they're actually sharing the venue with another wedding.
Course, right. And with a building such as this, obviously a Grade 1 listed building,
Indeed it is.
In cases such as that, there may be restrictions as well.
Yes, there may obviously be restrictions in all sorts of private houses, but as you say, when they're Grade 1 listed, obviously we do have to be a lot more careful.
Check in each case, obviously.
Yes, yes, it has to. There's nothing worse than finding out that there is quite a severe restriction on the wedding day.
I see what you mean.
The bride and groom, really need to know exactly what they're getting, exactly what they're paying for, as soon as possible. So they need to have quite a long checklist.
Do your groundwork.
Yes,
quite thorough.
yes.
And very handy, I'd imagine, to have a venue manager, events coordinator there.
Definitely, yes. Yeah, they must be aware that they've got the correct advice and management that they need from the first day that they come to the venue to view it, right. Through booking, through leading up to the event, through their final details meetings, and someone that needs to coordinate and run the whole thing on the day. Of course. Because they don't really want to get here on the day and just find out they've been left to it.
Not helpful.
No.
Tell me, what would the advantages be of having both the service and the reception in one place?
The main advantage is there's no travelling between, i.e. the ceremony, church, to the actual reception venue. That can be where things can go wrong, i.e. a car breaking down, traffic jams, traffic accidents, and obviously people getting lost.
Of course.
So everything under one roof makes things a lot easier, and the bride and groom and the immediate family haven't got to worry about travelling from A to B, and obviously, of course, there's a time factor.
Of course, yes, you cut that worry out.
Exactly, you haven't got that at all.
Is there anything that you need to know as far as performing your duties on the day is concerned?
The information that I get from the bride and groom, I get as much as I possibly can. We work as wedding coordinators here at Lim Castle, so we're working alongside the bride and the groom and their immediate family as much as possible from as soon as they book. If they book 2 years in advance, we will work with them and advise them right the way up to the day. We would meet here about 3 months prior to the event, where we'd sit down and what we do is what we call a final details meeting, where we go through everything in finite detail. Again, starting with the basics, the timing, most importantly. What time are we arriving? What time are we getting married? Are we getting married here in the castle, having a civil ceremony, or are we getting married in church? How many people are coming? If it's a civil wedding, has KCC registration been informed, and have they been booked? Because obviously we don't want to start a civil ceremony without a registrar, because it's not a very good start. What the menu's going to be, what we're eating. We're fortunate enough that here at the castle we do all the catering in-house.
Oh, superb.
So I have a small brigade of chefs. So again, we can provide a very extensive service. We provide a good range of menus, different styles, buffets, carveries, etc. But obviously I need to know what we're eating.
Exactly.
Whether we have any vegetarians, celiacs, wheat and gluten-free. Obviously we have to be aware of allergies very much, yes. So that's very important this day, especially if it's nut allergies or allergies to shellfish. And very importantly, who else is coming into the building other than the guests on the day, i.e. bands, discos, perhaps a toastmaster, photographers, videographers, things like that. I need to know who those people are, what their time they're coming, what they're going to be doing when they get here, and most importantly, do they have the correct insurances and certification in place?
Of course, very important, yeah. In this case, of course, we have a splendid medieval fortress with wonderful views, but of course, there's an infinite variety, I would imagine, as far as venues are concerned. Give me some examples of what other venues might consist of, broadly speaking.
Well, the popular ones at the moment are castles, medieval castles, historical buildings, manor houses. Hotels are still quite popular, but then we can go down to public houses, large restaurants where perhaps we might be putting marquees outside on the grounds, as we can do here. Another question that the bride and groom might want to consider asking their venue quite early on, if the venue may not be quite big enough for them, but they may be able to put a marquee on the outside in the garden.
Right, so some smaller venues as far as the physical building is concerned might have quite extensive grounds. Check whether you can put a marquee up there, it might be possible. Excellent.
Or even a large building, but we're having a very, very large wedding and we've got to have a marquee on the side.
I see.
Some venues won't allow that.
No, so again, check in advance, it's important. Right. I guess another instance of the variations from venue to venue would be what exactly is included in the package. Are there, for example, any hidden extras which a bride and groom should be considering?
Yes, that is something that the bride and groom definitely need to consider. There shouldn't be really any hidden extras, but they do need to be aware that if there's any additional costs that are going to be passed to them, i.e. equipment, tablecloths, linen, napkins, crockery, cutlery, etc., even furniture. Obviously, Lim Castle, I have everything in sight because I'm a very busy venue.
Right.
If the bride and groom were going to a restaurant or a hotel, they would expect everything to be there.
Of course.
But if they were going to an occasional venue, which possibly only does a dozen weddings a year, there may be things that have to be hired in, and those costs may well be passed over to the bride and the groom.
I see. So don't take anything as read.
No, don't take anything as read. They must look into it as much as possible. Venues these days shouldn't be trying to hide anything from the bride and groom, but they still need to be aware of everything. I.e., have they got enough parking? If they're going to bring 2 coaches, we don't want to find out on the wedding day that we can't get those coaches down the drive because it's not big enough.
Absolutely.
All these little things need to be thought of.
In talking to you, what I'm struck by is the sheer variety involved with venues. From venue to venue, there can be
yes, there can be significant changes. For instance, some venues don't do their own catering. As I said, we do here. So if the bride and groom are booking a venue without catering, obviously that's going to be their responsibility. So they need to book a caterer, a reliable caterer, an experienced caterer, and then they also have to make sure that that caterer is liaising with the manager or wedding coordinator at the venue.
Exactly. And as far as the day itself is concerned, is there anything that you need to perform your duties on the day?
Bride and groom is usually a good start.
Always helpful.
The celebrant and the registrar if we're having a civil ceremony here within the castle. And again, as we've just been discussing, as much information as I can possibly get my hands on, so I can make sure that we've staffed the venue accordingly, correctly, and I know what's going on through the course of the day.
Good, excellent. So do your groundwork and provide as much information as you possibly can, because often that information, which might not seem obvious at first sight, can be pretty crucial.
Exactly, yeah, it can be very crucial on the day.
Absolutely. Nigel, thank you very much for talking to us today.
It's been a pleasure.
When booking a venue, it's important to establish how many people will be attending before you start to look. Ask if you'll be sharing the venue with anybody else on the day. Provide as much information about what's going to be happening on the day as possible. Ask if there are any hidden costs.